that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, we've talked for some time, particularly ever since after Spider-Man No Way Home. Because to whatever degree you feel, we've said this a lot on the show, whether you think it's been a little struggle or a huge struggle, most of all of us agree that Marvel has had, say, more struggles than they have had previously. On that, I think everybody can agree. Now, we may not agree to how severe the struggles are, but we all agree they're not quite firing on all cylinders the way they had been. And we've talked ad nauseum a lot about different times when that's happened, how it's become apparent, what the causes for those are. So I want to take a second, because somebody wrote me an interesting message last night asking about, you know, the troubles with Disney, and he was comparing it to like a mechanic. But like, John, what do you see Disney doing to fix it? And I thought, you know what, that's an interesting topic. And I thought we would talk about it here today. So what I want to do right now is go over, some of this is a refresher course for the first part. What are the 5 things I think that has led to Marvel being in their current situation of struggling more than they were prior to Endgame? But maybe more importantly then, what are the things we see them doing to rectify the situation and to try to fix it? All right, well, let's get things started here. The first big problem I see, and these are in no particular order, that has led to Marvel having some struggles, is this: lack of an identity for the MCU. And I mean that in several different ways in terms of faces, tone, and story. On the faces side, you've heard me talk about this before, right? Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark and Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, Captain America, weren't just big stars. They were the faces of the MCU. And you could feel their DNA in everything, right? They were kind of the centerpiece of the whole cinematic universe. And when they left at the end of Endgame, I remember we made videos about this. I think that left a really big hole. And I said, one of the big challenges for Marvel is going to be now replacing that leadership, not of the leaders of the Avengers, the leadership of the cinematic universe. Who you got to establish the new faces, because you're going to have a lot of faces, but you got to have those figureheads, those ones that are the heart and the soul of it. And they, up until this point, they haven't done that. Also, lack of identity and tone. While you have a lot of very different kinds of MCU movies, right? Like Ant-Man was very different from Civil War. Nonetheless, there was a definitive DNA in all their movies that you truly felt like you were watching a Marvel film. A lot of that had to do with the involvement of Kevin Feige, which we'll touch on a little bit later. The third thing with the lack of identity is story. You know, while every movie in phases 1, 2, and 3 had its own story, they also felt like they were all kind of tied together in this larger cinematic universe, ultimately being the Infinity Saga and leading us into events like Civil War, then Infinity War, and then Endgame. Since Endgame, how many times have you heard us and many other fans going, so what is the story of the MCU right now? And nobody's had an answer for that because they haven't given us one. It's been years now and they haven't given us one. So that's the problem. Here's what I think they're doing about it right now. In terms of faces, I think that's still a big question mark, is faces. Like, who are your definitive figureheads of the MCU now that Iron Man and Captain America, well, the Steve Rogers Captain America aren't there? Are they trying to establish Sam Wilson's Captain America, as one of the new leaders of the cinematic universe? Are they trying to position Doctor Strange as a leader of the cinematic universe? I thought there was an opportunity there to kind of reposition Thor as one of the leaders of the cinematic universe. They don't seem to be pursuing that. Is the upcoming Fantastic Four going to give us a Reed Richards as a new figurehead of the cinematic universe? Maybe yes, maybe no. But it seems like maybe, hopefully, they're trying to go in that direction. One of the other ways I really think they're trying to now get everything and get their ducks in order is in terms of tone and story. Now that Kevin Feige is a little bit more involved, and again, we'll touch on that in a little bit, but also now we've got our understanding of the story and the direction where things are going. Will the smaller movies start to reflect that? Certainly hope so. So there's that. All right. Number 2. If the first thing that I think caused the problems for the MCU was the lack of identity, The second thing is just too many projects. Guys, do you know? You go back into phases 1, 2, and 3, you had years where you had like 3 projects, 3 Marvel Cinematic Universe projects come out. And that's in phases 1, 2, and 3, that's when they were firing on all cylinders. But then came Disney Plus. And then came the demand for more and more content, something else we'll get into in a bit here. But that led to one streak, Chris, between 2021 and 2022. The MCU had 18 projects.
Jeez.
18!
That's reasonable, right?
That's an average of 9 per year. Now, granted, that was a combination of big feature films, big Disney Plus series, smaller specials, things like What If, but still, 18 projects.
And almost none of them with showrunners.
And no, none of them had showrunners. None of them did. And it kind of led to a situation where the big problem was in the first couple of phases, we talked about tone being an identity. Kevin Feige had very firm grip and control over the projects that were happening. As they started expanding to 5 projects a year, 6, 7, 8, and 9, it was just way too much. Kevin Feige progressively more and more was able to be involved less and less and less in all those projects. And many of the projects, even some of the ones that weren't bad, just stopped even feeling like MCU projects. Quality control came way down. That definitely hurt it. And you ended up having a situation where, because you had so many projects, when you had 3, we can pick our 3 best directors we want to work with. We can pick the 3 best writer or sets of writers that we want to work with. We can pick our 3 best stories that we want to develop, right? But once you get to 8, I won't even say 9, 8, well, now you're in a position where, well, we've got the 3 we really wanted to work with, but now we got to work with 5 others that didn't make the cut before, but now we have so many projects, we are literally working with people that we wouldn't have worked with before, but now we are. Because we got to go further and further down the ladder. You started to have a diluting of the talent base in what they were doing. So you had less quality control because Kevin Feige couldn't be involved nearly as much. You're now working with people that otherwise you would not have worked with because you just got too many projects going. And you just started to dilute the overall process and project. Now, how are they addressing this? Well, we've talked about this one already too. Bob Iger came back, and one of the first things he mandated was, we are reducing the amount of content we're going to create. We got to focus more on the quality rather than the quantity, which was a big reversal of direction, because when Bob Chapek was there, remember, the Marvel executives revealed that the mandate that came from Bob Chapek's office was create as much as you can, as fast as you can. And that doesn't work. And it didn't work for them, and it hurt them. So the first thing I was saying was that they lacked identity. The second thing we're saying is that they had too many projects going. The third thing I want to suggest is this. They just started introducing way too many characters way too fast. How do I mean that? Let me take you back to the beginning of the MCU. Okay? There was a philosophy. Let's establish our core and let's stick to our core, and then we'll start to pepper in new faces here and there. Let's go back and take a look. They started off with Iron Man. Hulk, then went right back to Iron Man 2. Then they started to get their main base together. Then they had Thor and they had Captain America, the First Avenger. So now they got their core. So what did they do after that? Avengers. Got our core there. Peppered in a few other faces to join our core, but it's still our core. Then they had another Iron Man movie. Then another Thor movie. Then another Captain America movie. Sticking to the core, the identity of our franchise, the people, the faces that the audience is accustomed to and like. And then they introduced Guardians of the Galaxy. Only after they did 3 Iron Man movies, a couple of Thor movies, a couple of Captain America movies, and an Avengers film, once they really had their core, then they started introducing new faces. And they started that with Guardians of the Galaxy. And right after Guardians of the Galaxy, boom, right back to core with another Avengers film. Then another new face with Ant-Man. Then boom, right back to Captain America, back to core. So you see, they had this philosophy, and then the next new face with Doctor Strange. They had this philosophy over their first few years of really making sure that we have our core and we focus on our core. And it's within that environment that we start to slowly drop in new faces. Guardians of the Galaxy, core, core, core. Ant-Man, core, core, core. Doctor Strange, core, 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 right? Ever since Spider-Man No Way Home, that's kind of gone out the window. In a very short window of time, and this could also tie back into the whole point about the lack of identity in the MCU lately, because in a very short window of time, we all of a sudden got a vomit of new characters. Some of them very good, I'm just saying, but all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we had Moon Knight, Shang-Chi, Monica Rambeau, Ms. Marvel, Echo, She-Hulk, The Eternals, Kate Bishop, Werewolf by Night, and on top of all that, of all those new characters, suddenly they were now elevating what were background characters. Suddenly now Shuri is a frontline character. Suddenly now Falcon is a headline character. So is Winter Soldier. Agatha is now a frontline character. Wanda and Vision were background characters, now foreground characters. Like, so on top of all the new faces that just got dump trucked on us, they were also elevating characters that were already there, but were secondary characters and now thrust to the forefront by throwing out so many new faces at once. It just kind of left, again, it goes back to that other thing about a lack of sense of identity. They were no longer giving us one new or two new characters, establish them, then drop. No. That was out the window. It was just all these brand new characters, and nobody in the audience kind of knew, where is this whole thing going? How do these tie in together? Why should I even care? Because we get introduced to Moon Knight. And how much stuff have we seen Moon Knight in since? The answer is none times. None times. We got introduced to Shang-Chi. That movie was great. None times.
None times.
None times. I mean,
I'm full.
It's just they did that. Now, how are they fixing this? Bob Iger is bringing his philosophy that he had with Pixar, because what happened? When it wasn't Bob Iger, Pixar just started to put out nothing but originals, which some people celebrated, but it kind of hurt Pixar maintaining its identity. We had a streak of like 4 or 5 completely original films come out, and most of them didn't do very well. So Bob Iger comes back in and says, okay, we need to do originals. That's how we get new franchises. We get franchises from originals, but we need to also go back to the things that the audiences already love. So we're going to do another Frozen. Duh, they were billion-dollar films. We're going to do a new Moana. Duh, that's going to be a billion-dollar film, right? So I think what you're going to see is, now that they get the backlog all out of the way, I think we're going to see Bob Iger, Kevin Feige start to establish some of these characters more. I'm not necessarily saying we're going to get 5 more Captain America movies, but maybe let's get a Shang-Chi 2 and 3. Maybe let's get, I mean, I didn't love the Hawkeye series, but maybe we're going to get our Kate Bishop series. Like, start to firm up and establish the characters that are here before we start glutting out more and more new characters. So yeah, too many characters too fast is the third reason. The fourth thing that I think led to some of the struggles of the Marvel Cinematic Universe over the last couple of years, I hate to say it, but was the Kang Experiment. The Kang Experiment was badly handled because Kang showed up and he was supposed to be this great, awesome, big bad, being portrayed by an amazing awards caliber actor. And ultimately, what did we get? We got this guy in Loki season 1 that was no threat at all, and ultimately died because, what was the female Loki's name again? Start with an S.
Sylvie?
Sylvie. Sylvie just did stabby. That's all. Oh no, the big bad. No problem. Stabby. There, he's done. Now, then he talked about, oh, there's a worse one coming. Oh, okay. All right. So we get, which came first, Loki season 2 or Doctor Strange or Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania? I think Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania came next.
Right.
So Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania comes out, and, oh, I'm Kang. He literally got beat up by Ant-Man and some ants. Oh, no, John, he didn't get beat up by it. He lost to Ant-Man. However you want to semantics it, he lost to Ant-Man. And then we see him again in Loki season 2. And again, it's really, I don't see anything there to be threatened by. They did a terrible job of truly launching Kang. Because nobody felt dread. Nobody felt fear anymore. He was stabbied and beat up by Ant-Man. There's nothing less to feel dreadful about. Oh, and a football stadium of coked out guys going, roar, at the end of the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. A football stadium of 1,000 Kangs going, oh, like they were fucking college bros. They totally botched it. You know, Darth Vader came walking through the smoke of a door, and the moment he came through that door, everybody was crapping their pants. And I just felt like they really botched the Kang experiment. And regardless of Jonathan Majors' personal legal troubles that happened, that aside, I think they were going to ditch Kang anyway. Not because of Jonathan Majors, not because Kang isn't a great character, but because they botched it. They botched that character. And I think that hurt them. And now they've got to pivot and go to Doctor Doom. And hopefully that will right that ship. So the Kang experiment was another thing. And that's how they're going to fix it. They pivoted to Doctor Doom.
So they need to add smoke with Doctor Doom then.
A lot of smoke.
Get that effect, baby. Come on, Marvel.
They absolutely do. They have to have, when they bring him out, they need to bring him out with a bang.
Right. I get it.
And something that demands your attention when he shows up. Because you introduce some weak sauce the way they did with Kang, they're dead before they get started. So I think that's going to be really important for them. All right. The fifth thing that I think was one of the reasons the MCU started to struggle, and what I now think they're doing about it, it's got to be said, leadership instability. Now, companies will change leadership and regimes, and that happens. The problem was there was such a stark difference in philosophies that Bob Iger had as CEO versus what Bob Chapek brought to the table as CEO. Bob Iger was establish our franchises, make sure we're always serving our core consumers, and most importantly, give the authority to the creators. That was his big thing. That was his big philosophy. Give the authority to the creators, which is why Kevin Feige had pretty much a free hand. He answered to the great Alan Horn, yes, but for the most part, let Kevin Feige cook. Set him loose and let him cook. Bob Chapek, on the other hand, had a very different philosophy. He wanted to treat it more like a business. In theory, there's nothing wrong with that, but in treating it more like a business, he said creatives shouldn't have the authority. We need bankers to have the authority. Bob Chapek created a middle layer of management run by his banker that now Kevin Feige had to answer to them. And also they stripped away Kevin Feige's power to decide what to make and where it goes. And that authority went to the banker. And then came the mandate: make as much as you can, as fast as you can, and just shovel it out. That leadership instability crushed them, I think, creatively. And how are they fixing it? Well, Bob Iger's back. Bob Iger gave creative control back and decision-making power back to Kevin Feige. One of the first things Kevin Feige did was stop what you're doing on Daredevil. Stop it. We're no longer under the rush it out as fast as you can thing. The Daredevil we're making is not working out. We're going to start over and make the right Daredevil. Captain America 4, stop. This is not working out the way that we wanted it to work out. The mandate of just rush it out anyway is no longer the law. We're going to stop what we're doing. We're going to correct the mistakes on it, and we're going to put out a better product, hopefully. So those are what I see. I see that the problems have been lack of identity. Too many projects going, too many characters too fast, the Kang experiment failed, and leadership instability. Lack of identity, they're starting to establish new places, new tones, and finally starting to give us a sense of their story. Too many projects, they have pared down the number of projects they're going to do every year, and hopefully that's going to start giving a better, higher quality output. Too many characters too fast, I think you're also going to see them just by reducing the number of projects. That's going to help, but they're going to start focusing on, let's start establishing these new characters we brought in before we just start throwing out a new glut. And by the way, they better start establishing because X-Men are coming. The Kang experiment was a failure. Well, they've already corrected that. They've decided to move on from the Kang experiment and now focus on Doom. And hopefully they've learned a lot of lessons for how they botched Kang to make sure they don't make those same mistakes with Doom. And then the leadership instability. And listen, the leadership instability one isn't solved because Bob Iger is still retiring. And hopefully one of the things that they tell any prospective new CEO is, the creators have to be in charge. I mean, you're in charge as CEO, but don't put too many middle layers of management. Don't put bankers in charge. Let the creatives create and let them have the authority they need. So that's the 5 things that I see have led to kind of the struggles that Marvel has had. And now, at this period of time, the things I see them doing to hopefully correct them. Guys, we want to take a second and thank a sponsor of today's video, BetterHelp. Guys, we all know November's all about gratitude. And along with those we appreciate, let's not forget to thank ourselves. In a world as busy as ours, just making it through each day can be an accomplishment. One important way to show yourself some appreciation is by investing in your mental health. And that's where therapy can really make a difference. Therapy isn't just for those in crisis. It's for anyone wanting to learn better coping skills, set healthy boundaries, and work towards being their best selves. You often heard me talk about that it's great that we prioritize our physical health, but it's time that we also prioritize our mental health. Let's start encouraging ourselves and others to take steps to improve our mental health as well. So if you've ever thought about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, super flexible, and fits right into your schedule. You just fill out a quick questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can even switch therapists anytime at no extra charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Campea today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Campea. Anyway, Chris, that took a while for me to get through. What are some other reasons you see? What are some other solutions you see them doing? What did you think about any of the ones that I did? I don't know. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
I definitely think the pivot to Doom is a smart idea, but kind of piggybacking off of that, it being Downey isn't enough. That's not enough of a big thing. And so you do have to make sure that that character is firing on all cylinders. Doom is a character that even your casual comic book viewers, even your casual just like moviegoers know about Victor Von Doom. My mom knows who Victor Von Doom is, right? So you really have to make sure you nail that character, give us a good reason for why he's got Tony Stark's face, all that good stuff, right? The other thing that you talked about, introducing too many characters, not only introducing too many, introducing them for 5 seconds in a post-credit scene and doing nothing with them. Doctor Strange 2, we have Clea, right? Thor Love and Thunder, we have Hercules. We have Pip the Troll and Star Fox from the Eternals. And then my personal favorite, we made a note about the Sinister Six. In Spider-Man Homecoming, Vulture goes and talks to Scorpion in prison of how there's a bunch of us who'd love to take care of Spider-Man, especially since you seem to know who he is.
Including Morbius. Somehow.
Somehow. But Toomes in that, if we're staying in the proper MCU, right? Toomes even does I don't know him, which now plays into the universe we have set up. No one knows that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, right? So Toomes literally can't know. Yeah. But we have this perfect boots on the ground situation to authentically establish our Spider-Man baddies and pursue that. And that was 3 movies ago.
Yeah.
And I love what they've done with Spider-Man, don't get me wrong, but there's all these little threads that we keep having and no one's pulling at them. They just kind of stay there. And it's useless. It's absolutely useless. Like seeing Clea played by Charlize Theron in Doctor Strange, I just went, we're not going to have anything to do with that. Which is disappointing. She's an incredible actress. What an amazing role for her. But like, we keep being set up for these things to come that never come into fruition. And I think that's been a huge misstep is, hey nerds, get excited for this comic book thing to happen. and then we don't deliver on it. It's not enough to present an Easter egg. You have to have follow through.
It's like the blue balls of nerddom.
It absolutely
Blue balls.
is. Stop making us a bunch of crooks. All right.
Yeah. Or Blade.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
are you, what is he, what's his line? Are you sure you want to do that, Doctor? Or whatever the line is. Woo, it's Blade.
Yeah.
But he's gone.
And so is the
Forever.
So is the night.
That was the whole movie.
That's 3 out of 5 topics you guys are mentioning in Blade. Do you guys have something against me today?
Well,
All Blade. It's not blue balls, it's blade balls. That's what we're going to start.
Oh, no.
When a movie
Oh,
never
golly.
comes to fruition, we're calling
There
it
it
blade
is.
balls.
well, it all falls in the Bladian theory.
The
of-
Bladian theory of balls.
All right, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? What do you see have been, number one, don't just say the problems, but how do you see those problems that Marvel has struggled with being addressed right now by Marvel or not? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.